You're listening to Mark of the Maker. And this is episode 4. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Steiner, and this is Mark of the Maker. And this is episode 4, where we're going to talk to Michael Burch about his life and his experiences kind of developing as a knife maker and learn a little bit more about him as a person. So we have everybody with us. Tom, you here?
I'm here. Looking forward to tonight. It's going to be a good time.
Sean, you're with us?
Greetings and salutations.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that.
Fancy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to hear his word of the day.
Now the pressure's on.
All right. And Michael, you're here as well, I assume?
I am here and nervous.
And nervous. Excellent.
In the hot seat.
It's kind of nerve-wracking.
I know.
Too funny. Okay. Burch, you want to kick it off with kind of telling us who you are, your life story a little bit, and then we'll kind of wind into it from there.
Where do you want to start with me?
Where you grew up and a little bit about your family, if you want to talk about that, where you lived growing up and what kind of life you lived as a younger guy, kind of how you came into this whole situation.
Well, I grew up in a great little town called Humansville, sort of southwest Missouri. It was population like 1,000 people. It was pretty much kind of middle of nowhere sort of stuff. But we had a lot of acreage. It's like 450 some odd acres. But it was always sort of hunting ground. My dad was always cultivating sort of a hunting land. You know, we had a couple pastures, and I think he always kept usually 20 head of cattle just because that's what he did and his grandfather did. So I think he liked cattle, which I did not like the cattle at all. But, you know, I had a brother and a sister, and, you know, I was always out there. I was always doing something. I did a lot of chores and stuff. We were very, sort of a working family. There was always something to be done, you know, on the farm, food plots or whatnot. And we had a lot of gardens, like 4 gardens. I remember we actually even had potatoes we grew, you know, and we'd actually walk behind the tractor and, you know, with the single plow and pick potatoes. You know, and I've talked to some people, and if it wasn't for, you know, in retrospect, you could almost say I grew up sort of almost Amish without the religion in a way. We did a lot of very homestead sort of stuff. I remember making butter and stuff like that. Some of that was for, what's that?
So your dad grew up, his folks were cattle farmers like for a living as a profession?
Well, okay, his dad was a cabinet maker. But he also grew up north of there, north of us, about an hour. And there's a lot more pasture type flat area and they had cattle and pigs. You know, they raised a lot of pigs and stuff like that. So we kind of did the same thing. You know, you always take a little bit away from what your parents did and have a little piece of that. So My dad did a little bit less of that, but he still, you know, we raised 3 pigs every year, and you know, we were off for Christmas break, we would make them into food for, you know, a nice way of saying that. You know, and I started doing that at a pretty young age.
Do your parents still live on the family farm in Humansville?
They still do. But they are really looking to move, which, you know, is I'm not sure what to do about that one. But I get it. It's a lot. They're getting older, and it's a lot of land to take care of.
Right.
A lot of work to do for them. And I think they want to move a little bit closer to the kids. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But it was a great piece of land for a kid that wanted to explore. There was a used to be a train track that went through there, a train that went through there. And there was a reunion grounds and what we called our bottom field. So you'd find these pieces of marble down in there. And this hump that was the train track. And we had a creek that ran through that I was always hanging out, and a pond for fishing. And, it was like the greatest exploring place, and a bluff where I would, swing off of. First time I broke my arm made myself a rope swing, and my first swing, right when I was at the apex, it broke and I fell on my back and broke some stuff.
Ouch.
School of hard knocks.
That's right.
Dude, that sounds pretty awesome. I mean, it really does. Pretty idyllic as a way to grow up.
It was awesome. And I was always out there. And you think back, you're like, now that I have kids, like there's no way I would let my kids spend as much time out there as I did. And it wasn't just fun. There was always fences to fix and chores to do. And, we had fireplaces, and a lot of that was, chopping wood, things like that. I was wood chopper. Right? There was no hydraulic wood chopper till I left home. There was no, he didn't get an auger till like I was almost out of there. I was the post hole digger. It was all that stuff.
One thing you kind of touched on, which it's always kind of astonished me, is looking back, when you were a kid, they kind of probably just turned you loose, and you're how far away from home and on the creek playing. And, I did that too in a town called Mountain View, Arkansas with my grandparents. And now that I have kids, I mean, would you let your kids do what our parents let us do?
It's a different world though. And it was a scarier world in my head. I mean, maybe that's just from a parent's viewpoint.
Yeah, I mean, they would just turn us loose. I mean, we had 100-foot bluffs and the creek, and
yeah, I don't know.
We might see them when it got dark.
And I've talked to my parents about that, and I talked to them about when I started making knives as a kid and stuff. And I'm like, my son is only 3 years away from that. I cannot imagine him just going out and here in the shop by himself and doing that. The stuff that I did as a kid, and it's kind of crazy. But it was fun. My dad he did an actual cartoon it was a syndicated cartoon, but I knew it was in the Kansas City Star, but it went out to other newspapers, however that worked. And he actually worked with the guy, the Doonesbury guy. But Dad's was called the Good Earth Almanac. And it was basically kind of panels showing sort of how to kind of survival stuff, I guess. Or I don't know how you would say it these days. Homesteading, I guess. You can make apple butter by doing this. Or if you want to, if you fall in the water, roll on the snow, and snow causes insulation. It was sort of a fun little stuff like that. So I think that's where a lot of that type of let's kind of live off the land or whatever part of it came from. And it wasn't like in a weird sort of, we're off the grid. It was just, I think, frugal parents wanting to get the most out of the land they lived off of.
Wow.
Obviously we hunted and did a lot of that stuff too. But to put all that in kind of context, my dad was also he was an outdoor writer. The cartoon was something he did earlier, but he turned that into being an outdoor writer. And so he wrote for hunting magazines. He also, one of his first jobs was being an editor for a woodworking magazine. So there's always things we'd be building for his articles or his books. Like Sean showed me a book that he picked up of one of my dad's, The Basic Wiring. So,
oh yeah, well,
the great thing about all
that book's as old as I am.
I got to learn that stuff. Oh yeah, he's got but he's probably written 30, 40 books or something, and he wrote for probably 40. He's probably still writing. He's supposed to be retired, but I bet he's still getting a little bit in now and then, but mostly sticks with doing his artwork stuff. Does painting and whatnot now. So he's just one of those guys that doesn't sit still. But yeah, it made for an interesting thing because I got to learn, all sorts of stuff, how to do plumbing and how to do, basic house wiring stuff and all this. And he, since his grandfather was a cabinet maker, he did a lot of woodworking stuff. Never did anything with metal. So I'm not quite sure where that picked up with me.
This is so weird. So I didn't know this about your dad. I just Googled him, and I've got like, I don't know how many of these books. It's so weird, man. I mean, that's really cool.
But it's also, so we would build like a shed. He did a book on building sheds. So we'd have like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I have it.
Extra sheds for no reason.
I have 3 of his books on sheds.
Nice. So yeah, we're always building something, doing something. And so I think maybe that was part of the hands-on side of it. But, and I started thinking about like my first knife and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure it was an old timer that I got from my grandfather. And I remember thinking it was pretty cool. And it, like we talked about in the other episode, it was one of those that, the dark blade, carbon blade, whittled away to nothing. Who knows how many times it's been sharpened. But it was, it was neat. And I kind of got, and I don't know how old I was, but I was pretty young. I bet I was 7 or something. But then my mom has always been kind of frugal, and she'd go to like flea markets and stuff like that. And I started tagging along looking for slip joints, or any kind of knife I can pick up. And then I just started finding them, and a lot of them aren't worth jack, but I still got a bunch of them. A lot of whittled down blades and, imperials and things like that I started being fascinated with them.
Do you still have any of them?
Yeah. Yeah, I still got a lot of them. I also used to look for razors, the old straight razor stuff. I was fascinated with the curves and the hollow grinds and stuff like that. And they're just interesting. I picked up one of those, what are they worth type of knife books. I don't know what they were called. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Levine's Guide to Knives and Their Values.
That's the one.
Wasn't there one that was Koval or something like that too?
It was a thick one. I mean, if there was an antique knife, it had it in there. I just posted up a photo because someone had a Schrade Walden knife, and I posted up mine. That was one of those I found on one of those flea market trips. And that got to be where I was looking at that stuff. I'm like, I was amazed by it. And then I found out that, my dad was one of those, like I talked about, kind of a jack of all trades. He did a little bit of everything, and everything was woodworking. So, usually based around the woodworking is what he enjoyed the most. That I found that he had actually made a couple knives from, I believe it was Dixie Gun Works. Do you remember that company?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They made rifle kits.
Yeah.
Well, they did all sorts of stuff. They're still
around as far as I know. Yeah.
So they did, the rifle kits, and he had a couple of the muskets. And then I found out that he had also made some fixed blades. And he had picked those up to do them. The kit knife where you get the blade and you don't grind anything. But for him, he wanted to do checkering on the handles. And hell, it could have been for an article he was writing at the time or whatever. But he had 3 or 4, and I was like, this is amazing. I was like, you made these, and they were just kind of these kind of rustic Bowie knives, brass guard, but a cool checkered handle. And I was like, I want to start doing that. So, of course, I went out to, where there's always tools. We had plenty of tools to go around. And I went to an old bell saw Foley 1x42 that was in the barn. And I found a file, and I talked to my parents about that because I wasn't sure how old I was, and they swear I was 10 years old when I did this, when I first started doing these knives.
Wow.
I found a file, but I had no idea about heat treat. We did not have a cool library like you. And obviously, this was before internet and stuff. I was born in 78, so this was, not, and so I took this file and I took the little piece of, what are they, brass or something from the threshold of the door or door jamb.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about?
Yep.
Took that and an antler from a deer I'd killed, and made myself probably the shittiest knife ever created. My mom still has it, and
we need some pictures of that.
Yeah.
Oh, she has it as a letter opener, but she doesn't use it because she says it doesn't even open the letters for shit. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
But at the same time, I also found like my dad had like one of those old Tandy kits that was like, it was just like a do-all type of kit, you know, I found that and I was like, this is awesome. You know, I think that's how my dad, like, oh yeah. I made myself a sheath for one of my knives. I mean, and they sent me a picture much later and it was embarrassing. I'd stamp my name, Burch, because it was made for the guys that wanted to make like their belt, you know, with the little leather wrapped around it and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
It was bad. But after that, I moved on to, I made a machete out of something. I have no idea what the steel was, but he also had these old pack of wood handles, like these black ones, and these rivets. So I was like, well, there, I'm set. And then I started taking some old lawnmower blades and I'd heat them up with a torch. And once again, I didn't know shit about shit. I was just a kid and trying to forge it straight and just not knowing what the hell I was doing. Once again, I mean, my parents, I don't know what they were doing, but they didn't stop me. And it kind of progressed from there. I kept doing it, you know, until cars and high school kind of came around and, you know, all that stuff kind of goes to the side.
Well, like you said earlier, it's a different time, right? I mean, I know when I was that age, it was not uncommon in the summertime when we were out of school to disappear in the morning and not come back until after dark, right? Or by dark in time for dinner kind of thing, right? That was the rule. And, you know, you'd get on your bicycle and go wherever, right? Or in your case, you know, they were okay if you went out on the property, right? And
yeah,
I don't know. It is interesting, the differences, and in some ways kind of unfortunate the way it is now, right? I mean,
yeah. And at the same time, I could think if I had that much acreage, I'd be a lot better at saying, hey, go out and do it. You know, and we were also separated by a pretty major highway between us and the town. So, I mean, I didn't have the friends that would bike over and like that. It was basically me out there by myself, and I had a dog, you know, a black lab. We would just always be out and about, just doing our thing. And I'd always have a knife by my side, you know, something, you know. And I remember when I got a little bit older, you know, my first real knife, air quotes there, was, you know, the Buck Special. And I misspoke in one of the earlier ones. That's when my cousin got the K-bar. So I had the Buck Special.
The 119?
The
6-inch blade one or whatever?
Yeah, the shorter one, not the long one.
Dude, those things are cool.
Yeah, classic design.
I just put one in my cart on Amazon.
It's amazing how light they are. Those are very lightweight type of knife. But we'd go out, and it was always about, I guess, sort of survival, I guess, for lack of a better word. We were very intrigued by, we found these. You guys have heard it. You've heard of Lofty Wiseman, haven't you?
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah.
I know you. Yep. I think you've seen him, and I bet some of you guys have read him too. He had a VHS tape that my cousin and I watched, and it was amazing. You know, it was, you know, starting fires with all these chemicals that you're like, why the hell would you have these chemicals out in the middle of the wild when you didn't have a match? But whatever. But snares and stuff like that, and it was just this, it was like an itch that kept growing and getting bigger and bigger. You know, we also had a great Army surplus store that was just stuff all over the place. And it seemed like that it became more of a going out kind of, and then you'd see the movies that we kind of all saw growing up, you know, that were kind of dudes doing survival stuff out in the woods, and it kept going from there. It was awesome. You know, you'd be out there with your knife, and that's all you really needed. And you would, you know, do woodcraft stuff with it for no real reason except just to do it.
Yeah.
Right. You were doing bushcraft before the modern bushcraft revival.
Hipster bushcraft.
It was bushcraft for, yeah. Yeah, it was. And we'd play, you know, when we had our the friends out and about, when I got a little bit older, we would play like war games and stuff, and we would try to think of all types of different ways to do it. One was like ketchup and mustard. That would be our, if you get somebody with that. This was, pre-paintball and all that stuff, and we were all pretty poor. But it was, we were always trying to think of ways to kind of do stuff like that, kind of build our own, tent or campsite and practice fire starting and stuff like that, just doing kid stuff, but it was a great amount of fun just kind of being out there and doing it, and then I remember, getting the Smoky Mountain Knife Work catalogs and seeing all those damn knives, and it was amazing. You guys know the feeling when you would leaf through that thing back before it was even color. It was like that weird type of, kind of like the old J.C. Whitney catalogs. They were very kind of just almost newspaper looking. But I remember as a kid, I saved up money and I bought the Indiana Jones, because I love those movies, Kyber Buoy. I think it was like $140. So I remember riding my bike to some buddy's house. It was probably 5 miles away, or who knows how far, with this thing strapped to my back because I was all excited to show it to him.
That's awesome.
And I think I still got that thing around somewhere. But even then you're like, this thing's kind of, you thought it'd be heavier. You thought it'd be a little more stout. You knew something was missing, but you didn't know what it was. And I didn't have access to blade at that time, and it just it was different. I was sort of out there just trying to figure stuff out and just looking through, the Spyderco catalogs my dad would bring back from the SHOT Show and stuff like that. And just kind of picking up everything I could and trying to read as much as I could about anything that had to do with knives.
So one of the things that we've talked about kind of in prep for not just this show, but just in general and some of the future topics was, like you've just been talking about, Michael, knives you had when you were a kid, or that you were intrigued by when you were a kid. And you posted a picture in this conversation area we've had about the show, and you'll have to share that sometime here with folks to show the picture of this Explorer Stubby from Smoky Mountain Knife Works. So that was on a family trip or something that you guys went on? And
oh yeah. We did the thing that like Tom does with his kids now, and I hope to be able to do, and I need to start doing. And I don't know how they did it. But my parents, we always had a big Suburban, and we would go on these trips, and they would drive us. And usually we, when you're older, you find out it was because we were going to a SHOT Show usually, or some sort of writers convention, so we'd pack everything up, and it'd either be on the East Coast or West Coast or whatever. They used to move them around and stuff like that. So we'd pack up, and we'd pack camping stuff too. So we would go, and it'd kind of plan out all these cool places that we used to go and check out, and then camp some of the time. We'd rarely do the hotel thing or motel thing. It was mostly just kind of camping along the way till we got there. And it was kind of a great way to see everything, and really got me excited about history and stuff like that. And I want to be able to do that for my kids too, but I really don't know how they did that, or how you do that sometimes, Tom.
It's tough. You just got to do it, man. I mean, I don't know. Here's a piece of advice. Your kids are growing up. Try to spend time with them, because they grow up really fast.
That's a fact.
Man, no kidding.
and start young. I mean, you've got some fun years ahead of you, man. And I'll be honest. We have wanted to do the camping thing, but it's almost too much anymore. I mean, for me, it's, we get hotels and stuff, or stay in the park at the lodges or whatever, and we just try to go to different state parks and plan little trips and do one a year.
No, and I applaud you for that, because it's, I mean, it was crazy that we did. I remember going, I think it was Colorado, that we were driving along, and all of a sudden there's this huge dune of sand.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And
right?
I was just like, yeah, it blew my mind. And then we'd go, to the East Coast, and we got to see all the colonial stuff. And I was just fascinated by the museums and the history. And then you'd also start getting fascinated by the tools, the weapons, the tools, the stuff that was used in the history. You know, you mix this kind of fascination with history with fascination with tools and weapons. I mean, let's be honest, the knife is the first and greatest tool ever made. And it was, you know, probably the most important part of getting to where we are. And it was just amazing. But one of those was, we were heading out that way, and they knew that there's no way I wasn't going to see Smoky Mountain Knife Works, you know, so they let me go there, and I felt like I was in like this great museum. You know, I didn't. It was
they
awesome.
have a museum in the back.
I don't know. To this day, I don't really remember what I saw. I remember walking in. I remember seeing that huge folding knife and kind of a blur of just thinking, this is, you know, where I need to be.
The coolest place in the world.
It was. But I had to buy something. So, and I like this little knife that was called a Stubby, you know, and it was made by Gutman. Gutman or Gutman, however they pronounce. Tom, you probably know.
I've heard it both ways.
I'm pretty sure I have that exact knife.
Yeah. And those knives were kind of, you know, I'd have my dad bring those. Every catalog I could think of, I would have him bring back from SHOT Show and be like, I need all the knives. And there used to be a distributor that would do the Gutman and all those. And I liked them all. I used to get the Atlanta Cutlery one in. That was really got me fascinated on historical type of weaponry.
Love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It picked me up a Mula Maoflon knife from them. And that's what you start learning about, you know, your kukris and because they'd have a little bit of a story behind each one.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you'd get just enough taste to go find out more, you know, to get the desire to find out more. And there's some amazing designs out there. Some of these kind of worldwide historical stuff it's very awesome. And you'll see some of those in modern designs. I love seeing Sean do a little bit of take of a barong in some of his folders lately. That big leaf kind of blade. It's very cool.
Yeah.
There's no culture I refuse to steal from.
Yeah, there's some awesome stuff out there.
So how did you transition into knives?
How'd I transition into which part of it?
Yeah, how'd you get where you are now?
Oh, it's a long stretch from there to here. You know,
What's next?
I did the high school stuff where you forget about most things except, you know, girls and cars and what you're going to do next. And then, you know, like I said, we used to play kind of a lot of camping and kind of that sort of stuff. And then it was like, kind of decided I wanted to go into the military. And didn't really have, my uncle was in the Marines, but I didn't really know him that well. It wasn't like a family thing. It was just kind of like, you kind of want to test yourself, I guess, in life. And that was one of those where me and a buddy of mine were like, let's do this. You know, we like the kind of outdoor, you know, going out and doing that sort of stuff. You know, not knowing that's, you know, not really how that plays out, but in your mind, it's kind of, you know, that getting out and doing kind of that survival type stuff. So we decided to do it. And, you know, if you're going to do it, you might as well do the Marines, I think, you know, if you really want to test yourself. So I planned on going to college. So I signed up for the reserve program. Cause I was got like a little bit of a scholarship with soccer and, some of my really, you know, grades, which weren't that great, but whatever, to go to a small college in Ottawa, Kansas, to play soccer there and get my learnings. But, so in between that summer after graduating, it's like I left like 5 days after, and we were on like what they call the buddy program. Well, it was supposed to be like you go and you're supposed to go to boot camp with your buddy. And that lasted about 2 seconds when the drill instructor or one of the guys is basically like, okay, you over here, you're over there. You over here, you're over there. And you're not saying shit. You're not going to be like, sir, I need to be with my buddy. I mean, it doesn't foster that sort of,
It's not that kind of an environment.
But I did find out that, for anyone that's gone to boot camp, done this stuff, the letters are like the most important thing. You get a little touch at home because it's a long, boot camp's pretty long for the Marines. And the letters you get from home you find are pretty important. And if you get something that smells a little bit too perfumey, or if you get something that's got some hearts on it, you will get some shit. Probably do some push-ups for them. It's all in good fun and stuff, but it's, you're going to get shit if you got something on it. But I found out that you can send a letter to another group of people. And I knew my buddy was in a different, what were we? I know a lot of these guys, they remember all their numbers from military. I know I was 3150 or something like that, and he was, basically, in layman's terms, he was in a different building. And you can't just walk around and say, hey, how's it going? There's none of that. You don't leave unless, you stay in one spot. So I wrote him a letter, put hearts all over it, and he got a lot of shit for that one, supposedly. But after that, I kind of did the college thing and played some soccer, kind of sucked at that. But it was fun. And, did the Marine Reserve stuff where you spend a couple weeks going somewhere every summer, and then every once a month you go basically hang out with your buddies. They become your friends and you just kind of hang out. And it did the same thing that we all kind of did, where you look around and you think you're going to do something that has to do with college. You think you need to, because that's what we all learned, that we need to go to college and learn a career. We don't always know that we should have known what we were going to do from the get-go if we would have looked hard enough. But so I did it, and I thought I was going to be a writer, and I did write, did freelance writing, and but I'd never graduated. Moved around to a couple different colleges, trying different stuff out, kind of floundering around, trying to find what I want to do. I did some freelance writing, and then got a editing job at Bass Pro Shops when I was, I bet I was 21 or something. And then when I was 22, it was around 2002, whatever old I was, I bought a house, and it had this big open garage that was just prime for me to do something with. And about that time, I worked for the internet department of Bass Pro Shops. We started looking around, and people started popping up really, these pretty decent websites around that 2001, 2000, whatever, era, the early 2000s. There's a lot of cool websites of knives. And then, so I started looking at like these Simonich, like his website was pretty cool. He had a lot of damn cool knives.
He really did.
And
yeah,
and they were all kind of the Greco knives, these very utilitarian type fixed blades was all the stuff I was looking at. And that led me to Blade Forums, which, then led me to the USN, and once I found those places, it was like I was a sponge. I would find every bit of archived knowledge, just use every search word I could find, and just kept soaking it up. I remember like my first few, like questions on Blade Forums were, in Simonich's forum asking about, his mid-tech. It's like, so do you grind these? And, he was like, nope, machine will grind these better than I ever will. And I've still got that knife here somewhere. That was a really kick-ass knife. I remember back then it was like $200 for the mid-tech Raven.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that's a lot of money. Like, shit, that's a lot of money.
Is that the little skeletonized?
That's the Bitterroot.
Ah, okay.
No, I think those were $45 back in the day, depending on what you got, the Telenite, or like there was our S30V.
I think I've got a Telenite one somewhere.
I don't have the talent. I've got 2 of the S30Vs, one for me and one was for Abby.
Interesting side note on Simonich. After he died, his wife put up his black powder hunting gear, and I ended up with all that.
Really?
I really liked him. He was an awesome guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Great knife maker. And then for whatever reason, she put it up for sale on the USN to try to raise money for some stuff, and nobody was interested. And I've got it. It's just like he left it hanging on the wall. It's got a patch knife that he made and everything. It's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Yeah. I'd have to say, and Rinaldi, he had a cool sight back in the day. Like all these guys had really cool, these just badass. Remember his Armageddon?
Yeah. Neil Blackwood.
Yeah. All these guys, they had these very badass fixed blades that it kind of triggered that old school, high school kid feeling again of, I don't know, something primal, I guess, something that kind of clicks in the reptile brain part of you that just makes you kind of want to go out in the woods and do woods type of stuff. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about, and probably most people that listen to us probably know what we're talking about when we say that. It's kind of that, I don't know.
I think a lot of people understand what you're saying. And I mean, if you look around, the bushcraft thing is growing like nothing else right now. And that's exactly what that is.
Yeah. But I mean, these were the ones I loved were the very impractical ones, the Mineral Mountain hatchet works.
Those are totally practical,
dark,
man.
Big 50.
Yeah.
Big badass. I mean, he didn't care. The bigger the better. Newt Livesay stuff and all this crazy kind of. I had one of his machetes. That was a very cool piece. Which is kind of crazy because I don't make any of these things that I used to lust after. These knives that and I still see them and think, wow, that's pretty badass.
Some interesting characters we've mentioned so far in this little segment.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they made these very badass big knives,
Dude, know, and pretty prolific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd save my money and see what I can buy, and I think I was on the books for an Armageddon at one point.
Yeah,
but that one didn't come through. So I don't know. I remember meeting him at Blade, and that was kind of crazy.
He walked up to the table to me at Blade this year.
Really?
Trace walked up. Yeah, he's like, guess who I am? He's lost about 150 or so pounds probably.
I knew he lost a bit of weight.
I was like, "What's up, Trace?" It was crazy, but yeah, he was at Blade this year.
Is he still making, or?
I don't know. I think he's wanting to make some. Sounded like, the table was busy when he walked up, but yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I don't know if those guys know how much they did just by being there, just by what they created, and just, I don't know, it created this idea, in my head that, I can do this. I can look into this and start making. What? And then I found, what's that?
Well, I was going to say, and what's cool is they were super approachable. Mm-hmm. I can remember talking to Trace and asking him how he did stuff. I called up Neil Blackwood and was like, "Hey, how do you grind a recurve? I can't figure this out." And they would help you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. And all those dudes could drink you under the table pretty much.
Dude, I can remember sitting with Trace in the pit at 5:30 in the morning and being like, I gotta go get a couple hours of sleep. And I'd come back down and he'd still be sitting there.
Oh yeah. No, those guys would do it. I remember with Kit Carson one night, he had to drink a lot more than me, but he seemed a lot more coherent to me. Now, I don't know how I was able to tell that he was no coherent when I was not at all, but
dude.
I remember that someone passed out in the middle of the lawn, and it was a bumblefuck. But it was an interesting night for sure.
The pit
used to have some
there's
long
always
nights there.
There's always good stories every year from the pit.
Oh yeah. Well, when sometimes you get folks that are like they want to do the heavy partying and stuff. I'm like, I've done that. I've been there. Now I'm kind of excited when I can get up and don't feel totally horrible.
Right.
You know, it's not to say that I don't still, you know, have a few beers here and there.
Allegedly.
I don't know if, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've told a few people about the story of, Tom, you were there with the, when Burnley and I lost to the Danes, right?
Yeah. The Irish car bombs.
Oh, man. Horrible idea. I don't know why that happened, or, you know, who invented Irish car bombs. Whoa. But they sound like such a great idea when you've been drinking. But they're a horrible idea. Well,
and talking to Luke, she didn't make them right. She made them about 3 times stronger than they were supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys know the Danes.
Jens and Jesper.
Fox. Yeah. Back in the day, we used to be able to, I mean, it was a lot smaller. So we all used to be able to hang out a little bit more. We've all it's kind of sad. It's kind of like almost like we left high school and kind of parted ways. We still go to the same shows, but they've gotten so big that we don't get to talk to each other much anymore. But we used to be able to, you know, hang out a lot more. And we had a night of drinking, which I don't know what year that was, but it was a while ago. And we decided we're going to go to that little bar on the side. For those that haven't gone to the Blade show, there's a little like bar to the side of the pit. And the pit is basically just the floor of an open kind of roof hotel. Not open roof, but
atrium.
Atrium, yeah. So it's very loud and crazy, whatnot. So we decided we needed to do some shots. And so we go in there, and I don't remember what they ordered first. Probably a regular shot, you know, just something. We took the shot, blah, blah. And I'm not good with the hard alcohol. But then we decided, you know, we're going to take the Danes down, because somehow it turned into Burnley and I versus the Danes. I'd say there was a bit of shit talking or something, some sort of patriotic, you know, thing we were doing here. We decided, you know, we're gonna fuck up those guys, and we're gonna get some Irish car bombs. In that usual way, they're not thinking about how much you're drinking yourself too. And at that time, Burnley was a bartender.
Yep.
So, you know, bartenders can always drink fast and drink well. So I thought he was going to be our man. You know, he's going to bring it home for America. Yeah, you know, and I've never been a fast chugger, you know. So we're sitting there. You know, Vox got a penetrating stare. You know, he's just looking at us. We drop those things in there, you know, and I'm sitting there trying to drink. I'm basically drinking my beer. You know, that's how slow I am at it. Burnley's doing a pretty decent job. I'm like, shit, yeah, look over at him. He's doing real good. And then Vox slams it down and looks at both of us while, like, Burnley was halfway through and I probably had 5 sips in, and looks at us and goes, "What's it feel like to be girls, boys?" and I felt,
dude, he started like talking trash. I've never seen anybody drink anything that fast.
It was gone.
It's magic. He can open up his throat and put a drink down in one gulp. Gone. I've never seen anything like that.
We shamed America that day. I feel like we didn't bring the heat. You know,
we let America down.
I mean, I feel like the Vikings have a little leg up on that. You know, I mean they're
genetically predisposed.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It was an interesting night, and I'm pretty sure I went sleepy time real fast after that.
So pretty funny. I was sitting at the bar talking to Burch after that. And I could literally watch the alcohol absorb into him. He was
That's
right
funny.
after he was talking fine, and then he started slurring, and then he started drooling, and then he hit the deck. I've never seen anything like that. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was probably the point of pure saturation. That was when I hit 100% alcohol.
I think Abby came and got you and took you upstairs at that point.
Entirely possible.
Tom saw the live attack on Burch's central nervous system.
But I tell you what,
took him straight down.
I was at my table on time, standing all day the next day.
100% professional.
You know, no matter how much you drink or whatever you do, you got to be at your table. But I remember our first blade was, I think 03 was when our first blade was.
That you went to or displayed at?
I think 04 was our first one, the first one that I displayed at. But 02 was the first one we went to because, I think 2000 or whatever it was, I started hitting the internet pretty hard and the forums and the USN and Blade Forum and Don Fogg's site. He had a little forum going.
Yeah.
And I soaked up as much Hamon information as I possibly could. And, we had that. So I go back to that garage I was talking about. So I had the garage. I had space. It was just a 3-bedroom, 2, bathroom kind of ranch home that you see all over the place, a 2-car garage. And I went and got that Foley bell saw 1x42. This was actually a little bit later because the first ones I did was with a file. And I've got a couple of those around, which took horrendously long amounts of time.
Yeah.
Everybody really crappy.
Everybody should have to do a knife with a file.
Yeah.
I think I made 3 knives with files and sandpaper, and actually tried to do a hand rub on them for some reason. I don't know what that was all about. Probably to clean up the file marks. One was like with pack of wood. One was like some weird cherry, whatever, kind of a chopper. And I took that one to a trophy shop and had him put my name on it. Kind of like with their little engraver thing. He was all like, "You want what now?" I'm like, "Just knife. You got it like an engraver thing, right? Just put Burch on it." I've still got that thing around.
Are you taking any pack of wood to TKI?
I'm taking lots of pack of wood.
Man, it's
all pack of wood.
What is it with new people and
magenta and teal pack of wood? I hope.
What's that?
Magenta and teal pack of wood.
Oh yeah. But it was, and it just started kind of growing from there. Then I did a couple file things. I'm like, this sucks. And I was like, oh yeah, that 1x42. Go back and grab that. And then I kept progressing from there. Then I found out that, Grizzly was like a mile or 2 miles from my house then, this Grizzly Industrial. And they had what they call a knife maker's grinder, which was, they still make it. But it only goes one speed, which is fast as shit. And if you want a hollow grind, you're okay on one side, but the other side's got the motor in the way. So it made for interesting making. And
man, that was the first grinder I got.
Yeah,
because it was what I could afford.
Son of a bitch is still running. I passed it on to a fellow around here to make some stuff with if he wanted to. So he better start making some stuff. But that thing's still going.
The one I got's changed hands 2 or 3 times, and I think that the guy who has it now just needs to put a new switch on it, and it'll work.
Oh, I bet so. Cool machines. And I had that, the Harbor Freight knife maker, bandsaw thing for a long ass time. And I know that, Jody Muller, my friend, is still using that same bandsaw. I think the same one he bought a long time ago.
Would you recommend? Would you recommend the Grizzly grinder for a new maker?
Not anymore. There's much better options out there.
Probably not anymore. Yeah, no. I mean, when I bought it, it was $250 or something, and now I think they're up to $375 or something. And now with all the plans that are out there, you had back in those days, it was like KMG was the shit. You could always find your old Wilton square wheels and stuff like that, and your Baders and stuff like that. But the knife maker grinder, it was even written in the damn name, was the one you aspired to get. But that was, $1,200 or something, and versus $250. I was like, I'll give this a shot. And it was sure as hell better than the 1x42.
Oh yeah,
bands. I heard the 1x42 grinder I was using before. It's always like a step above. And you see these questions over and over and over, and you still see them to these days in like all the shop talks and different types of forums of what grinder should I get, blah, blah. And it'd always be like, Tom May would always say, you buy the best one you can, which is true. But I didn't have $1,000. It was getting every little bit I could and trying to scramble to buy more. And the more you bought, the more you looked, the more you kept searching. Just searching every bit of that internet to find all the information you can about making stuff. And it was a cool time. And it was interesting. And you guys remember selling on the forums back in the day when you'd post something up and you would check it 5 minutes later, see what's going on. And of course, nothing to move.
You were able to wait 5 minutes?
Oh shit. Yeah. And it was just like, and you wait another 5 minutes, and it was just like this waiting game. It was exciting. Well, it was almost like, I wonder if someone's going to pick it, like you were fishing or something.
And the cool,
you had your line out there.
The cool thing, if you had a forum like on USN, is you could see how many people and who were looking at it.
Oh yeah, but this was long before having a forum on USN. This was just putting something up for sale.
Yeah.
And I remember that the first time I sold something, it was for $60, and I was just blown away. The fact that somebody was going to spend $60 that they worked hard for, that was their money for something I made, was amazing. And I will always remember that somebody is paying me money that they work hard for.
A lot of people who can't understand that feeling. If you don't make anything, it's hard to understand exactly how awesome that feeling is.
It is. And I will never forget that moment. And I try to make sure I remember that when I'm selling stuff, that this is their money that they're choosing to spend on me. So I better give them the best shit that I can.
Yep.
Or I'm not doing my part. Which is also brings the scary side of it of, holy shit, am I doing my part? That's the dark side of that same idea.
So in that time frame, you were working a day job, right? Mm-hmm. And the knife making thing is really kind of like a hobby, aspirational thing.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I was doing my internet, which of course I had internet at my fingertips there, so it's like, oh yeah, I can check all these cool sites and all this stuff. And there was a site that had all the Bill Siegel knives. I was talking to Sean about this one day. I couldn't remember who it was, but he always had them laid out on like a blue with white stripe type of background.
Yeah, I never was able to remember who that was.
But man, he had a lot of cool knives. I remember just going through that site and checking them out. But yeah, I had a day job and did that. And I even had, in our little backyard, there was a little sand pit, whatever you call it, playground thingy. But we didn't have any kids at the time. I made my own little heat treat forge stuff to start playing with Hamones with these fire bricks, a fish cooker, the burner from a fish cooker, kind of buried in the sand. So I'd be out there in the middle of the night in this residential neighborhood with, where you got like a quarter of a acre of yard. I mean, you can see every neighbor 5 times, on each side of you. So I'd be sitting there in this little sand thing in my backyard in the middle of the night with fire blowing out of it, holding little tongs, crouched down on the ground. And I'd say they probably thought I was cooking some sort of bad drugs or something back there. But, I started playing with, I had like my canola oil or whatever oil I was using at the moment in, these military jerry cans. Or no, the ammo cans. And it was cool, and I still get excited when I see Hamones like that, because you never know what you're going to get. It was even more of a mystery then, but you get a little extra activity, be like, holy shit, look at that activity. And you still got that feeling when you start doing the Hamones, because you don't know what you're going to get. You can think you're going to get, you can try to remove all the damn issues or inconsistencies out of it, and you'll still be surprised what you get sometimes, which makes it awesome.
So how did you make that transition from, so when you did your first blade show, when did you say 2004?
The first one, yeah.
Where you took knives to sell?
Yeah. Yeah, that was
And you were still doing part-time stuff then?
Oh yeah. It was still part-time. And that was a lot of fixed blades. You know, I had a lot of cord wrap stuff back in those days.
Yep.
And even had some that were gun coated. I used to gun coat some, and I used to hamon others. And they, you know, I'd come home with some, you know, which was, you know, but it was more about being excited about the ones you sold, not worrying about the ones you brought home.
I remember those days. Not selling.
Yeah.
I mean, they still kind of terrify me a little bit sometimes, but
little lean days.
Yep. I've got one or two of your knives with a cord wrap. I'm pretty sure still fixed blades.
We did a trade.
Yep.
I got that Turner,
the finger cutter
that I still use in the. Yeah. I did cut my finger with it, doing something totally manly.
Right.
Yeah, Abby was not happy about that one. I was shotgunning a beer, and I stabbed his knife through the can into my finger.
I mean, that's, if you're gonna do it right. I mean,
right.
I feel like you guys are gonna have an intervention for me after this next one. But I didn't even talk about meeting Jody Moeller. This was another kind of big.
That's exactly what I was just going to ask. Is did you know Jody in this time frame, or is this kind of when you met him, or how'd that all work?
I did, and I'm pretty sure it was through someone, I don't know, or through the internet. I've realized that there was a guy that forged stuff about an hour from me, or hour or so from me. So my cousin and I were duck hunting, and we talked to him. So we were duck hunting, you know, north of me, closer to him, inside of, you know, he invited us to come watch or whatever. And so we went and watched Jody and because he used to have all his forging stuff over at his dad's place, and watched him forge with the presses and stuff, making Damascus. And it was just badass. I mean, if you look at something getting forged, you know, and it doesn't move something in your soul a little bit, I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, because you're squishing metal, for God's sakes. It's awesome.
Right.
And then you're taking different metals and squeezing them together and telling you, hey, metals, stick together. I'm the boss of you, and you're going to make a pattern that I want. It's badass. It's cool. There's something kind of primal about it that is very exciting about the heating up and beating metal and making it into the shape you want. Or in my case, semi close to the shape you want.
Yeah, very, very primitive. And it's a lot harder than it would seem.
Oh, it doesn't look easy. But the Damascus part is something that I do enjoy quite a bit, and I still go to Jody's, you know, every once in a while. We became friends after that, and he is, now talk about a fellow that is very knowledgeable about the knife history stuff. He remembers the names, he remembers the times, and all this stuff, and he's really the guy that got me excited about the history of it, because we would go over, I'd go and we'd, you know, forge or whatever, because then he started moving all the stuff to his house. And we'd stay there, and we'd stay up night checking out books. You know, he had a pretty vast collection, still does, of knife books. And so I started buying them too. And because it was just fascinating seeing all these old knives and where it came from. And it was very interesting. Yeah, I think he definitely got me intrigued in the history of this stuff, you know, quite a bit ago.
And just for the record, Jody's super talented.
Yes,
knife maker and
he forges,
engraver.
He engraves, and you know, it's just pretty badass what he does.
Also, before I forget, we're talking about some of these knife books, and I know correct me if I'm wrong, but you've written at least one article for a Knives annual, correct?
Yeah, I used to do some of the article, or used to do an article for them. I think I did 5 or 6 of them. But I ran out of time. I don't have the time. I'd fret about it. I'd worry about deadline of it, and I ran out of time to do them.
Yeah,
it'd be cool to go back and do it, but I don't know if I can even write anymore.
What kind of articles, Michael?
They were whatever seemed to be interesting to me at the time. When Kiradashis were kind of popular, I did one on those just because it was kind of a trend that was hitting. Just kind of whatever I saw either coming around the corner or coming at the time, or, what was interesting to me at the time. So it's just interesting to see some of the knives and stuff and what was going on. And he still asks me, if I want to do it. It's been years since I've done one, and it's flattered that he asked, though.
Yeah, I'd love to see you start doing that again.
Man, I can barely put together a coherent sentence when I'm talking.
That's the beauty of the written. When I'm writing. That's the beauty of the written language.
But yeah, and I remember starting out. It was kind of to me such a great era of knife making. That first part of forums and stuff coming together, because you get to meet all these people that are interested in the same thing as you, and you kind of realize that you aren't just a weird dude who loves knives, which is kind of awesome. That they were a great way to get, all of us sort of together in one spot. And we always would ask each other questions and share stuff and poke fun at each other. And it was just such a kind of a fun time to learn making. I'm very grateful that I got to learn when I did, or started when I did. And it was, and I remember working so hard to try to find my own style. And it was something you thought about a lot. What's my style? What's my style? Because like we talked about some of the other makers, you can just look at it across a room and so-and-so made that knife. And you strive to be that way. And then it seemed like the moment I quit trying was the moment it seemed to happen, which was very odd. I used to be very big on the dowels too. I used to love making the big old cleaver blades.
So how did you reach the conclusion that it was time to do the thing full time, or what compelled you to make that jump? Because that's a big step.
It was a big step. One, I was very tired of my job. And I don't know if it was just that job, or I think it probably could have been any job anywhere. I think if I would have been in a cubicle doing anything, and then I used to get to do stuff like reviews of stuff, and it wasn't like a bad job, but I was just felt caged, I guess, for lack of a better term. I didn't like the kind of corporate lifestyle. I wasn't good at it either. I kind of thought, if you just kind of did your job or whatever, that's all you kind of needed to do. But that's not how life works. That's definitely not how corporate life works. So I was getting very kind of fed up with that job. And it was paying pretty good for a guy that didn't graduate college, and, but I did it for 7 years. And on the side, I kept kind of doing more and more and growing as a knife maker. And then we got to a point where the job was just, I didn't really want to do it anymore. And that weird tipping point. And I remember having a conversation with, who's getting arrested?
Apparently no trains tonight, but me. The ambulance just went by.
Gentry is a lot busier than I thought it would be.
Right? Main Street is crazy.
It seemed like I only saw like 2 people when I was there, but all of a sudden now it's like but anyway, so I reached a tipping point of, kind of shit or get off the pot sort of thing. You're tired of this job, but you're also, it's security in a way. This was, it was also about that time when people were starting to get, laid off and things like that. But I had to talk with John Gonzalez, and he pretty much told me to, stop being a pansy and do it. Don't look back. And Abby was very understanding, which is, I think a lot of us, if we didn't have wives that understood us or were as understanding as they are, we wouldn't be able to do this, because it takes a huge ass leap of faith to say, oh, hey, I'm going to go make knives in my garage for a living. Screw the khakis and the cubicle. I'm going to go do this on my own. It's a huge leap. And I've been lucky that it's, paid off. And I think if I keep doing it, I might be able to, make as much as I made at Bass Pro Shops. I'm lucky. Maybe someday. Fingers crossed. Yeah. But that was, when was that? 2006, maybe? Yeah, I think it's 2006 when I went full time.
Wow.
And I haven't had to go back to get a job since. And I consider that pretty lucky.
Absolutely.
It's pretty exciting. I can remember that first blade. I remember you brought, like in 04 or 05, you brought a folder. I can remember one of the first folders you brought. You were like, what do you think of this? I was like, wow. Of course, I wasn't making folders at the time, so I was really impressed. And it seems like it was a Dow blade with a bamboo handle or something.
Yeah. Yeah. The first folder I made was, because folders was like, it was a milestone you reached.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was magic.
It was like this weird, it was this line you had to go on. You make fixed blades, you do this and that. And then if you'd made enough of that, it was almost like you got to progress. There was this weird sort of knife making hierarchy within the kind of forms of, this is how stuff's done. You don't just hop the folders. It's like you had to pay your dues or something. So when I finally got to the point where I was going to start making folders, I took that kind of Dow cleaver, and the first two, I started two at the same time, not including the one I made on Atwoods. I don't count that one. But the first two that I actually made and sold one was a Dow kind of cleaver blade, and one was a Tanto. And it was kind of crazy. It was so exciting to be like, holy shit, that works. It opens and closes and does what it's supposed to. And I didn't know how putting a hamon on a folder blade was going to work out, but there was a lot of trial and error and figuring out how to do it to how I like it. But so far it's paid off.
Heck yeah.
People seem to enjoy them. Not everyone seems to know how to take care of them, but that's a whole different story.
Right.
But that's kind of the good and bad about the hamons. You got to love that knife to keep it going how you want.
So, one of the things we've talked about in some of the other conversations was about teachers or mentors. So your stuff, the stuff you were learning was really coming through things that you learned online and from doing stuff with Jody, or did you work with anybody who tried to help kind of lead you along a path?
I purposefully tried not to. And I know that sounds weird, and I probably put myself back on learning quite a bit from the get-go. But I didn't want to use Jody's style. I didn't want to use Tom's style. I didn't want to. So, and I went to Tom's and he showed me some grinding, and I was just like, huh. And didn't walk away with really anything except, damn, he can grind. And I didn't magically go home and be able to grind. But you pick up the useful tips, but I really tried to put a blind eye to other people's stuff so I didn't make someone else's stuff. And I remember when I made my...
You're trying to be careful about not copying someone's style. That was your concern, right?
I didn't want to... And there wasn't a lot of people around that, Jody was making art knives. And that was like a unapproachable type of... I'm not going to go just walk in and think that I'm going to start making art knives. So it was like I didn't want to try to learn how he was doing that. Because one, it's not like you can just step in and do it, for one thing. I think it's very... it'd be very bold to think you could just be like, oh, I'm going to be able to make what you just make there. And I didn't want to, like I said, I didn't want to kind of take anyone else's style. So I worked hard to try to do my own thing. Now, I think that there's like the forums. I think the internet was my teacher, because, like I said, I soaked it all up.
And it's really easy to unconsciously start kind of copying someone else's work, if you're...
It is.
It's super easy.
It is very much. But you take all that knowledge and you take everything you find and you take a little bit of it. You take a little bit of it and you put it in a little knife bag until you have it full of, and you're ready to do your own thing. You just take all that knowledge and kind of create your own. And like that's what we talked about before, how it's got to be kind of tough for the newer guys because that knowledge got a whole lot bigger. And that all the knives out there, there's so many of them. How do you not step on someone's toes? I mean, it was hard enough when I think we were making stuff. I can imagine now.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, but people then were also a lot more rigid about, if you were even close to somebody's going to let you know, which was kind of good. It was a very kind of self-cleansing type of, group.
Well, like you said, it seems like a combination of things, right? But both the number of makers was a lot smaller, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The community of makers was much, much smaller. And I think likewise, probably proportionally, the community of buyers was a lot smaller as well.
Oh, yeah. It seemed like it. It was a very close, small community. And by small, it was still pretty massive. But I mean, by today's standards, it was very, very small. You knew who was doing what or where or how or, and all that stuff. And I miss that stuff greatly.
Yeah, it's a lot less personal.
It is.
There's so many makers that I just don't know.
And I feel bad that I don't know. And I also don't have time to try to find out. If I did, I wouldn't be able to do my own thing, which is it's this weird balance we have now of trying to, it's kind of like the keeping up with social media. We have this balance of trying to make knives, but yet still, be able to talk with folks and joke around on social media and stuff like that and find new stuff, new information. Because we're always still searching for new information. That sponge didn't get full. It just, we're always there trying to learn more, but it's almost like an information overload anymore.
Yeah.
Well, the whole forum thing, I think, was a huge factor in all of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just because without it, like you said, it's much harder to connect. And whether you're a collector or a maker or someone that makes material, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they were all there. It's like being in a mall, and you would be there and you just go to different shops. I'd go over to the Chili Brothers and poke some fun out of them or, Photoshop something and then go back to my store. It was awesome. It was a great source of information. Anything you wanted to know, you'd search, find. Now, the problem we had a lot of times with folks not being able to use that search feature and kind of figuring out some of this stuff themselves. Those days did get a little tiresome when people asking the same question, what's the best grinder? Should I buy a KMG or, but it was just part of it. We were all there once.
Well, even just the whole connection of people, right? Whether it's you guys to one another or, collectors to makers or collectors to collectors. I mean, I wouldn't know any of you guys without, places like USN.
No, USN was...
Just because there would have been no way to get to know one another.
No, it was a great place. And I remember when I went to that first Blade show, I was like a little giddy schoolgirl because, they had the badges.
Right.
So you knew, when you saw somebody, and I remember being like, oh, I know that guy. I'd turn around to Abby. She didn't dump me for this kind of crap, but, you kind of turn around and be like, oh, that's so-and-so. I know him from the internet.
Right.
In retrospect, it's not very cool.
But that was so awesome at shows. I can remember being so nervous at shows, and then, after being on the USN for a while, you're like, you start making friends online, and then you go to a show and you meet them, and it's like, holy crap, this is so cool.
Yeah. I'm surrounded by friends. It's crazy.
And then you're like, what? And you start putting names to faces and you're like totally blown away.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and then someone would change their avatar in the form and you'd be like, who is this guy?
Yeah, that was so confusing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the sad part about seeing some of that stuff start to slow down or decline, or the pickup of social media stuff, is like we've talked before, and you just mentioned it, Michael, the ability to go look in some, what amounts to a historical database.
Yeah,
right?
Very much.
Like it's a much more durable form of information. So if you wanted to go find a post from 10 years ago, you can go find a post from 10 years ago. And chances are somebody wrote a big long article basically about some topic or another. And, that's durable reference information that you can find. And that's when I think of the whole current model of social media with Facebook and Instagram. Yes, they're great visibility. They're easy to use. There's pictures, right? People are fascinated by pictures. So pictures fly by on the screen and that stuff's all great, but it's extremely, it has a very short lifespan, the information.
Well, I think that's part of why we have sort of a loss of history, kind of like lost our grasp on it, because it's not there at your fingertips anymore.
Well, and things shifted so quickly. There was no real transition phase.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was fast. And now we all do kind of Facebook groups, which are, it's kind of crazy because they're all sort of closed business. It's like having a business with no windows or doors, They're secret or closed or whatever. So no one out there really knows unless you're already in it.
Yep.
Or someone tells you about it or something like that, which is
no way.
Kind of a horrible business
I think
model.
that's exactly one of the big problems with social media now. With the forum, we had, places to discuss all sorts of stuff. We were part of something bigger almost. And,
Mm-hmm.
you drop down in the knife maker group and it's like, oh yeah, I'm a knife maker with Michael Burch and Neil Blackwood and Kit Carson. It meant something, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But we all kind of sold our souls for a little bit of convenience, which I hate to say it, with kids and stuff now, I want stuff faster. I don't have the time to, because I remember we used to do the whip threads and stuff. I used to do them on my camera.
Yeah.
So I'd do those and then you have to go in and load all the pictures up and sort them and Photoshop them down and upload them and stuff like that. And now it's like, I love the idea that I can just take a picture and boom, it's there.
Yeah.
But it did come at a cost. Or does, I guess.
So, okay, so you decide to make this transition to being a full-time guy, and that was before you moved to your current place and built shop and all that stuff, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think I worked in that.
So how'd you get from one to the other?
Well, I worked in the basically a 2-car garage for, I think, about 8 years or so. And we'd started looking for houses for about 3 years, and this one popped up. It was, affordable and for what we had at the time, and I was like, "Oh shit, I can build a shop." So I built it, and I've been working out of here for, I guess, about 5 years, 6 years, maybe. I think about 5 years now. Been working out of this shop.
It's crazy how fast it goes by.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be bigger.
It's really hard to believe it's been 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, can you pinpoint kind of when things really started to pick up pace for you, career-wise?
I think when I really started kicking into the folders, that's when it's really started kind of going. And I remember when I first started doing lotteries, which was a crazy, to me, aspect, the fact that you do a lottery. The very first one I did at Blade, and Abby will remind me of this whenever she can, I had one fixed blade on my table. And it was this little tiny, or little short little scalpel looking, I don't remember what it was called. But so I did my lottery, and they were all full orders in this one cord wrap fixed blade. And lottery went great. And then the last guy to get picked, I was like, here you go. And he's like, no, I'm good.
Oh,
He didn't want
Sir.
play. Oh, it hurt. And I still have dreams of that happening again. You know, having a lottery and someone being like, no, I'm good.
that's a nightmare,
It is.
dude.
But, you know, at the same time, we can't come to expect this. You know, once we get that complacent, that's when we have problems. So we need that fear.
Yeah.
We need it to keep us on our toes, keep us scared.
Hungry.
Quality by being scared.
You know, I know Sean talked about that in the last episode, and a lot of people hear that and laugh or think it's weird or crazy or whatever, but it's a pretty consistent thing, right?
Oh,
I mean,
across the board.
I think all three of you guys have expressed that concern, right?
Well,
That-
anybody who's honest is going to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody gets nerves from this shit. I mean, you're putting your knives out there on a table. You're putting yourself out there, kind of. It's odd.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Sean. You're putting yourself out there. It's not just your knives.
Yeah, you're laying.
And what if somebody doesn't want it?
Yeah, we have to admit that, you know, the inside of all of us, there's a little beret wearing guy that's kind of like scared of all this stuff. It's the artist side, I guess, and it's scary because you lay those knives on a table, you're telling everybody out there to judge those things because that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna look at it and say, judge me and judge my knives, judge my livelihood because I've put all this time, everything that I have into these knives. And you're just laying them out, laying them bare for everybody to check out. And it is scary as shit.
Yeah. And if you don't make stuff,
Yeah.
you won't 100% ever understand that.
Yeah, it is. It's scary. I mean, I don't know of a better way to say that one. And I don't think it ever will not be.
well, it's like it's sort of the next level of taking your job personal, right? Because it really is.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then once you start, you know, having kids and stuff like that and start getting rooted, because when you're younger, you know, you're making knives and doing this and that, you're like, oh, I'm versatile. I can move, I can shift, I can do whatever. But I'm rooted now. I've got kids, a wife, and a shop, and things become more real. You know, this is a career. You know, all that stuff I was searching for as a kid, this is what I am now. So, yeah, if they don't like it, they reject it, then shit out of luck.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it keeps you going. It keeps you working hard.
Well, and you hear horror stories of people that do lotteries and nobody shows up and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, hopefully never. But
Yeah, I try not to look at those just like I don't look at the calendar before a show.
when is TKI anyways?
I don't want to know about it.
Oh, you had to go
Head
there.
in the sand.
You know how many knives, how many knives I have done right now?
I'm guessing 0.
0.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You're working on the crime plan right there.
Mm-hmm.
Before we started recording, Tom told us he was ornery today.
Just a little.
Mm-hmm.
He just took his shot.
Working too hard. It'll happen to you.
So I probably shouldn't ask this question knowing how neurotic Burch is, but so like you said, right, there's, and this is true with anybody that has any kind of job, right? Like you said, life gets real, right? You buy a house, you got some kids, you got bills, you buy a new machine that you got to pay for, whatever. And I think for anybody in any kind of job, it turns maybe something that they enjoyed into something that's just an ass whip,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you keep motivated to where, I don't know, you can enjoy it, right? I mean, at the core, you start doing this, whether it's my job or you doing your job, because you love it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you really want to do this because you love it. But eventually, sometimes you can get to this spot, right, where it's like, damn, something I love got turned into something that I have to do, and maybe that can change how you feel about it.
Yeah, it definitely changes how you look at it when your bills rely on you finishing something. When it's fighting, your bills are fighting against you not wanting something to go out the door because it's not good enough is a weird way of having to deal with something. Because if you start messing shit up, which happens all the time when you're making stuff, and when you really want it to be a certain way and it's not, yet you still have to pay the bills, it's a lot of pressure sometimes, which can get to you. And I tend to find that it happens usually in the wintertime. I call my winter of discontent just because I get out even less, and you get kind of burnt from a lot of knives throughout the year. And how do I get out of it? I just wait for spring, I guess. I don't know. I talk to my
worst advice ever.
I talk to my friends, and and you find something that inspires you again. And it's, when you're, I've used a sponge analogy quite a bit. But when you're first starting out, everything's exciting and new. There's not a bit of it that isn't new or exciting that drives you to do it. But the more you do it, sometimes you don't find the inspiration in the same places you used to. But they happen. They just kind of happen at different places, different times. It can be re-energized by talking with another knife maker. It can be from just saying, screw it, and going hanging out with the kids. There's all places to find it these days. It's just, they're different than when you first started out, different places.
Right.
I think,
but yeah, it's tough.
I think one of the bad things about doing it for a living like we do is we start having to make stuff because we have to pay the bills versus this is what I want to make right now. So
yeah,
exactly.
But I'm very bad at just making what I want to make a lot of the times, which is not usually the best business plan either, because it's usually the slowest way. I don't ever choose anything really fast. It's always something slow that I want to do that's different or cool or in my head.
Yeah.
A very advanced degree in ADHD or whatever. Shop ADHD.
So, maybe that's a good spot to talk about the machine.
We talk,
right? Because, that's kind of been the next big step for you.
Are you talking about Hasselhoff?
My pal, my man.
Yeah.
Don't hassle the Hoff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Haas was one of those things where I was, the CNC, I was looking around and, I had been doing bolster and handle kind of thing for a bit. I've been doing, there were kind of straight ones, and I progressed to doing pantograph work. And the pantograph is kind of like anything else. You can spend as much as you want or as little as you want. The more you spend and the more you try to accurize it, the better your results are going to be. And mine, I've had two, and they're both kind of okay, but you're going to step up to a pretty high dollar pantograph if you want, like a Deckel 21 or whatever it is, to kind of really get a good solid machine. But I'd been making these kind of liner locks with the same bolster and stuff like that, and I wanted to create more. The head was going, but I feel like my hands weren't keeping up. So, I figured, hell, why not? And I'd been telling myself I needed to learn CAD forever. And I figured, hell, if I bought a CNC, I'd have to learn CAD. So
that's awesome.
I went and bought a mini mill and sure as shit started learning CAD pretty fast. Now I have a ton to learn, but it's like the greatest toy you can get for your imagination. Because you're limited to your skill, and that's about it. There's so much you can do, and then there's so much I want to do with it that I'm just excited about. And at the same time, I also, of course, this process has been slow because it's a one-man shop here. But I had the mid-tech stuff, go. But this one, which I don't know what I'm called, I get to do myself, which is pretty awesome to think that I get to make this in my own shop. But it's, kind of stalled for the winter, I guess, for getting ready for TKI and all that stuff.
It's called the MyTech. We already decided that.
The MeTech.
For Michael.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what it'll be. I bet I just put a V4 on it and call it good.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, I'll come up with a name later, but it'll just be V5 after that. But I love the idea of the mid-tech, and I keep referring it to the mid-tech because what else do you call it? The same thing with when I started doing the mid-tech. Some people are like, oh, you shouldn't call it mid-tech. I'm like, what else do you call this?
Small production run, mid-tech. It's all the same thing.
It's hard.
I mean,
it's real hard to put that on a logo, though.
Right.
So, yeah, it's fun. But it's also scary because, when you had parts by Chad made, it was like, something got screwed up. You're like, you had like a safety net. It's like, well, Chad did that. I don't have to worry about that. Not that happened or anything, but now if it's something screws up, it's all me.
Yeah.
Which is kind of scary.
We're getting ready to take delivery of ours, and I'm starting to feel the anxiety, and it's not even here.
Yeah, but you'll be fine. And like I said, I'll come down there. There's some basics. We'll set you up. You got the wireless probe and all that fun stuff.
Yep.
We'll get it going.
It's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah, it's like I've said before. It's the most rewarding and frustrating thing I've done in knife making. I've absolutely wasted so much material on that thing. But I've also got to create some, I think, really cool things.
Oh, agreed, man.
Oh, you have 100%.
So it's like So yeah, I've enjoyed it. But yeah, it does piss me off sometimes. Occasionally, I do wish I had someone in here that knew what the hell they were doing, but it's just me, and it's tough. But we have a great group of friends, and if you have a question, I'll ask someone. They may not have a clue what the hell I'm talking about, or know what I'm getting at, but they're there. Sometimes it just helps to have somebody to ask, even if they don't know the answer.
Right. So it's kind of funny, it's like you can infer it from the way I ask the question almost about like it's some kind of dirty little secret or something, right? That you have this CNC machine, but talk a little bit about why you think it matters. Because we referred to it in some earlier conversations, and I think Tom talked about it during his episode a little bit. People have this perception, right, that, oh, Burch got a CNC, so now there's this, the knives are all different. Or that somehow it's, I don't know, some kind of weird punk rock sellout kind of thing. Or
it is,
I don't know how to describe it.
There's all these kind of perceptions that are very hard to get around. And I don't know why. And I was scared shitless. I was more scared about that than I was about me not knowing shit about CNC and spending $50,000 on a CNC.
Right.
I was more scared of what people would think of me owning one. Like it was this horrible thing, but at the same time.
Taboo.
Yeah, in a way. And it's, and it shouldn't be that way these days. And I think we're getting around that. I think it's the idea that basically a robot is, making your things and you're not doing anything about it. You're just standing back and having it make stuff for you. But it doesn't work that way. Now there's some guys that can totally make some parts and make them pretty clean off the machine and stuff. But it takes a whole lot of skill to be able to do that. And it's a different type of skill. It may not be with how you file it with your with your hand. It may be years of learning how to work your feeds and speeds and your everything. There's so much more about it that it's a black hole of knowledge that is far beyond some of the stuff I even imagine.
Well, and I mean, it doesn't, yeah, like you said, it's not finished parts. It's parts, you still have to do stuff with them. I mean, it's funny because
it's what you do with it.
It's like the same thing that was 20 years ago where people are upset about the water jet. Now, instead of getting our parts water jetted somewhere else and waiting, we can do it on the machine and it's within a few tenths of a thousandth of an inch and much more accurate.
It's a tool. It's plain and simple. It's a tool, and it only does exactly what you tell it. And sometimes I've accidentally told it to slam into the table, and break end mills and stuff like that. But
I've told it very bad things.
Yeah, it only does what you do it. And I have all the tools still in my shop. I still have files. I still use files. I still use my grinder, my bandsaw, everything. Still, I still use the pantograph. It's just another tool in the toolbox. And how you use it is, depends on what, But I think that the point is, as long as people are transparent about how stuff's made.
Exactly.
And as long as customers they need to decide how they want it. It's not up to us it's not up to us knife makers, because that's what actually turned out. It seemed like other knife makers were more worried about how each other were making things. And it's up to the customers to decide what they want and what process they dislike or like. And they need to learn about it. Don't make a snap judgment. Learn about what it is, what it takes. And that's why it's kind of great to have folks in your shop to kind of see what it takes to make this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and the capability that you have with the equipment, right? I mean, with the CNC, it's kind of funny because I think people sometimes turn their nose up a little bit, right? About, like it came off the machine, the machine did the work. But at the same time, when you look at something like the vented knives or the hex pattern knives, or, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That looks like it's an underlay, but it's actually one solid piece.
Oh yeah.
Could that be done manually? Yes. Could Burch do it manually?
Nah,
I don't think so.
Not without
right?
a time, because those vents are done with the 364 end mill, and that's, use your calculator, that's a real small end mill. And
I don't think you could do it manually anyways. I couldn't.
I don't know, because they're complex curves are not complete. But the point is, it's the possibilities and what you can do with it. And I want to make more stuff. I want to go further with it. And that's the exciting part about it. And if you look around, you'll see, a lot of these, what I call like the micro production companies that make these really fantastic knives. With the, CNC and great machining and stuff like that, with the same materials that, custom knives are made out of. And I don't want to fall behind of that. And I want to be making the best stuff possible. So I'm going to buy the best tools possible to do that. That's kind of the catch-22 of it. It's kind of like people say like, oh, I want to see, if it's got a problem with it, or if it's got a scratch or something wrong with it, they say that proves it's handmade. The defects are what make it handmade. Be it that people don't understand, sometimes we don't want to see those defects.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We're doing everything we can to eliminate those defects because they drive us crazy. So it's kind of a no-win. We want to eliminate that stuff.
I think a lot of people that say that are people that can't. I mean, there's always flaws in the knives, obviously, but they don't need to be. You don't need to settle for that. You need to keep pushing yourself just like you do. And you know what I mean?
I'm talking from like a customer standpoint, when they say they like the flaws because it says it's handmade.
I hate them.
Yeah.
I get it on a primitive. If you're making like a primitive knife and that some guy was out there hammering it and stuff like that. I see that. I get that. But personally, I don't want flaws. I don't see primitive knives as flaws, but you know what I mean? Like if someone's trying to make a very clean example of a knife and it's got flaws, I don't want those to be on mine.
If they're not part of the design, if it's a hammered blade and whatever, but yeah.
So all gets to be part of the neuroses.
So right now you're getting ready for TKI. What other shows do you do, and what is your approach to shows other than not knowing when they are?
I just don't like to worry too much. And I know if I know it's coming quick, I'm going to get worried. So I try not to. But I do Blade Show and then The Gathering. And then we put on that little show here in Springfield that was kind of fun.
That looked like a lot of fun.
It was interesting to do a very personal type of show. was a fun experiment. I enjoyed it greatly. I think the customers enjoyed it. And TKI. Now where that show goes in Springfield, if we do it again or do it somewhere else, I don't know, but it was fun.
Yeah.
But
I would like to see it done again. I had a really good time at that.
It was, and I felt kind of weird about how to do it and what to do, but it was something I'd been wanting to do for a while. It was, we had the gallery, we had the space to do it, and it was also kind of a way to get, people to come to my little neck of the woods, see the shop, see my, the town where I am close to, and have fun. And I think we accomplished it. So it was fun.
That's awesome.
And stuff like that was, one of those that kind of energized me because it was different. Some people got to see how stuff's made. You get to see kind of the excitement and in their eyes when they see some of this stuff. And that's what kind of, like we talk about inspiration, that's what kind of gets you out of these funks sometimes. It gets you going again. But the shows are, I think, more important than ever because there's such a disconnect. Like we talked about in yours, you did the live stuff, and I did one, and I felt weird staring at myself.
You talking about the live broadcast on Facebook thing?
Yeah, but it's not the same. Like we covered, it's not the same thing as meeting somebody in person. If anything, there's sometimes I think customers forget there's a lot of you and one of us. So yeah, you remember our name. And there's a ton of people that's named. I'm actually, for a guy that has horrible memory, I'm pretty good at remembering faces and stuff like that. And you're a whole lot better at it when you meet somebody in person. It's when you've actually talked with somebody at a show and you can place that face with a name, it just makes it more personal. It makes the business more personal, and that's what we all kind of want it to be. Because it's a personal thing to make a knife for somebody. So, and it gets me out of the shop too. I can't lie.
Break out of the hermit thing.
Yeah, if it wasn't for shows, I'd never leave my property.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of kickstarts you sometimes when you're like, oh shit, you got no choice. You got to finish a knife for the show. So you start getting, putting a thing cap on and seeing what you can do.
Well, I think we all work pretty good under pressure too. It's good because I usually procrastinate until the last week or two and then have to make a bunch of stuff for the show. So, it's a good push.
I don't know how well I work under pressure. Like, I think Mark can attest to like a TKI, cause this show always gets me every year.
Every time.
It's same time, it's actually a week later this year, but after Christmas and all this stuff, and it just it hits hard. And I'm like, holy shit, it's here already. And, there's like a couple years ago, I was just so worn out and tired. I was a grumpy Gus.
Yes.
I was not fun to hang out with. But, it's also Vegas too. And a lot of loud noises and, tons of people and all that stuff, which isn't really my forte.
All those human beings and stuff. Ugh.
It's not my natural habitat. That's for damn sure.
Well, Vegas is creepy as shit anyway, so.
I love Vegas, man.
Yeah. I know you do, but man, I do not like Vegas.
What do you love about Vegas, Tom?
I don't know. I guess, I don't gamble. I don't drink. I get to go out to Vegas, which has awesome food, and it's just like, it's totally different than where I'm at, and I get to hang out with my friends for a couple days. So that, to me, that's winning.
Yeah.
So I guess I've just got good memories, and every time I go, it's a good time because I'm hanging out with my friends.
It's just, there's not very much quiet time. The part I usually enjoy the most is the breakfast, that we'll do.
Which is awesome.
Because it's quiet. It's in the morning. You can actually sit and talk like we are now. And it's kind of, and we usually have different people there. So it's great.
Yeah.
But there's just not as much of that, when you always got this booming sound going, always some music or something.
I never came to that breakfast with you guys. I got to do that this year.
Ron went last year. Or this year, I guess.
Yeah.
It was good.
Got it on my list.
Abby almost made it one time. She had a little bit of that little morning flu, whatever you call it.
All right. Well, what any kind of special project stuff you want to talk about or anything, Michael?
Oh, right now I'm just kind of chugging along, trying to get as much done as possible. I don't really have any, special projects going on or anything. I mean, I've got my mid-tech that I've kind of been setting on for a bit.
That's your next big thing, really, right?
Yeah, but it's finding time to really sit down and get that figured out, because that's a whole different process of fixturing a ton of blades and making sure how much wear goes on between each. I mean, it's a whole different thing than just making one at a time. It changes the dynamic of it.
Okay, so we're going to kind of change gears a little bit, right? And get into some different kind of questions. And Sean, you had something you wanted to ask Burch?
Yeah. Who in knife history would you most like to spend a week with in the shop and learn from?
I knew this question was coming, and I really don't know. There's a lot of really badass makers. Don Fogg would be awesome. I think that would be just really kick ass. That kind of Kamal period, if I can just kind of hang with both of them when they're doing their thing, would be just the baddest assest thing ever.
The group Kamal was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them.
So you got your Hamones, and you got your texture, and you got your carving. It's kind of like trying to soak up everything that you think is awesome, as much as possible.
I think that would fit your style really well too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
When you were studying, you studied Don Fogg. I mean,
yeah.
When you were starting out.
That or McGinnis. I can just sit there and see how fast he does shit.
Man, he just makes me feel incompetent and inept. I can't handle too much of that.
No.
So Tom, what did you say? Group Kamal?
Yeah. So there's two people that were making it. It was Don Fogg and who's the other guy?
Murad Syed.
Yeah. So they were they worked together, and they were, if you look back in some of the older books, you'll see where it references Kamal for the photos, and it's some wicked cool stuff they did. Way out left field.
It was their collaboration stuff. Kind of like
correct
that Fogg Gilbreth collaboration piece. Before that he did stuff with Kamal. I think it was before. But they were usually fixed blades, with the kind of carved handles. And so you had these kind of really, really intricate kind of crazy pieces. But he also did folders with him. I think 4 or 5 folders with him, which of course I am searching for still.
Yeah, they were hardcore art knives, and just, if you do a search for KEMAL knives, the first thing that pops up is like a wicked dragon carved guard with the Damascus dagger coming out. Yeah, really, really talented guys.
Oh, yeah.
I see exactly what you're talking about.
Just wicked stuff. But so much talent. And if you spend a week just watching those guys, it would be amazing.
And Don Fogg was actually a really good teacher too, so that would be a good choice.
Oh yeah. It was Cyan Cyan, not Syed.
Was it Sayen?
I think so.
Yeah, it's Murad, and then the last name is Sayen.
I didn't hear your Google machine clacking in the background.
I've been using the mute. I've been Googling the whole time.
I don't touch
He's
anything
a secret
on
Googler.
this microphone. I just let it be.
I'm switching around on the computer constantly.
What else do we want to ask Burch?
I'll ask the same kind of question we hit Sean with last time. What's your favorite and least favorite materials to work with in the shop?
My favorite materials are, like he said, the G10 is just so easy to work with, but it's kind of a gimme. It's like almost like stealing his answer
right.
too. So I can't really say that. I know the least favorite is definitely the zergatai.
I was thinking you might say black mammoth.
Oh man, the black mammoth is the hardest. If you ever see some of that black mammoth is just all the way black. It's gorgeous stuff, but you better have some patience and time to work with it. It will want to move on you. But no, the zergatai is just so, fiery. When you just even bandsaw on it, you'll see little pieces of fire go around in circles. Just kind of gets scary sometimes.
Yeah. If you're working Zerk, it's, it doesn't really spark, but it burns. And if you're working tie, it sparks a lot. So the combination just is not the best.
No, I'm with you on that one. No, but a lot of natural materials, if you're, they're not treated properly, can give you hell.
Yeah.
But I don't get a lot of requests for the natural materials, but I'm going to start using more just because I like it. Haven't used ironwood in a while. I'd like to go back and do a few pieces of that stuff because it's damn beautiful.
Yes, it is. And I'm not
That'd be cool.
natural materials guy, but ironwood is for special material for sure.
Yeah. And just
one is super stable. It's almost as easy as working with G10 compared to some of the other natural stuff.
It was good, thick, and oily, so it doesn't move. Once it does its thing, it's good. And there's something special. I love the natural materials for the feel.
Well, I think they bring a one-off to a piece. It's made by nature. There's not another piece like it.
Yeah. And there's something special about you go and you find those pieces, you don't just, I've never personally actually bought like ironwood or any of that natural material online. It's always, me going to a show, finding what I want, getting what I like and bringing it home.
Well, finding that figure that speaks to you, that piece that you're looking at it and you're like, I see the picture in that. I know what I'll do with that.
Yeah. And I'm just glad I got to use a piece of mother of pearl not long ago. And I wasn't sure how that was going to go over, but I've been jonesing to do it for a long time. Then finally came across the piece I wanted to use it on. And I like getting to do it again.
That was that Persian?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how that one turned out. That stuff can be so iridescent. Just there's so much to look at with that stuff, and it's just natural. The fact that it's like me and my obsession with meteorite stuff. I love materials.
Well, meteorite's just cool. It's otherworldly.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. The fact that it's did that. Flew through space and it only changed 1 degree every, 10,000 to 1,000,000 years. And that's the only way it gets that pattern. Now, don't quote me on the exact numbers on that because I'm not secretly mute Googling, but that's the only way to get the pattern that it has. It cannot be replicated, which is just, it's crazy. I love that stuff.
Yeah. I don't understand that stuff. Because if you heat it up red hot, it goes away. But when it comes through the atmosphere, it gets heated up red hot. So how does that work?
Well, it's because, the outer chunk, that's why it's a big old
gets
chunk.
Burned off.
Yeah.
Mark, you should have one of those up where you live somewhere, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just had that the other night where it's...
that was crazy.
Meteor came through. Yeah. Did you see the video I posted, Tom?
I was like, what the heck?
Yeah. Yeah, a little security camera thing, and the whole sky flashed
Green.
like it started to glow this crazy blue color, and then it got real bright blue, and then there was a secondary flash, like a flashbulb kind of thing, but extremely bright, and there was a big boom, almost sounded like thunder. It was absolutely crazy. But it's funny, Amy sent me an article the next day where there was somebody from NASA describing the whole thing and what happened. And, oh, by the way, the fragments of the meteor should be kind of in this general area, which is basically where we live. So people were joking around about, oh yeah, go out in your yard and see if there's a chunk of meteor out there.
To have one come through your roof.
Stuck your tongue out and try to catch one on your tongue like a snowflake.
Yeah, right. Right.
If you guys, I know you said you like to pick out your ironwood at the shows, but, and I'm that way too. I love to do that. And especially with stag.
Oh, yes.
And some of the other natural stuff. But, I've been getting stuff from Arizona Ironwood for a long time, and they put a lot of really good pictures up, and I've gotten a lot of good ironwood from them online lately. Really good stuff.
But you get to
of course, I
use it quite a bit, don't you? I mean, this is I haven't used it in probably 4 years, so it's stuff that's.
I think I've done 30 or 40 knives with it in this last year.
Yeah, I'm going to do one this year. I think I need to. It's one of those that's in my system. I got to get it out. I miss using it. You know, it can travel. That's kind of the problem with some of the natural materials. It just doesn't travel well from different humidities.
Yeah.
And then once, someone buys it and sells it or whatever, it's all fine and dandy, but not quite so much when you use something like that. And then it travels from, low humidity to high humidity and back and forth. And it's hard on the stuff.
I might send you a little care package that you might have to video opening.
I don't.
Materials to use on the next knife or something.
Is it a big old box of ironwood? That's really nice of you, Tom. I appreciate that.
I might send you some stuff to play around with.
I feel like it's going to be pack of wood.
You wish you were that lucky.
It's so funny. I mean, when we started out, I thought pack of wood was the coolest stuff ever, man.
Well, you're like, look at all.
And it was only like $6 for a block.
Mm-hmm. Look at all the colors.
And so many colors. Yeah. It's pretty.
Well, you see some of the different, a lot of colorful wood and kind of stuff now. And I wonder if it's sort of the same thing. I wonder if you're seeing
all the acrylics.
Yeah. They don't do much for me personally, but, might just be for the difference thing.
It's pretty, but I don't use it either.
We talking about the wood stuff where there's all kinds of crazy resin, epoxy, colorful stuff all strung through it.
Yep. I was just going to ask Michael about what he likes to listen to in the shop. We've kind of talked about this some, and I don't know if he wanted to throw out any favorite books or podcasts or anything.
I listen about
Circus Freaks,
about everything.
I don't know.
Start out with music. Is always. I remember buying like the first MP3 player. It was called like an iRiver or River or something like that. It was just so I can get music out in the shop because the earbuds and stuff. Otherwise, you can't hear it when the grinder and stuff's going. But yeah, music for a long time. Then I hit audiobooks pretty hard, and then I hit podcasts pretty good. Now I just I blend everything. Like I listen to some of a book today, and I listen to some podcast today, and a little bit of music. It depends on what I'm doing, and sometimes you just kind of use something different to get in the mood. A lot of true crime stuff as far as podcasts, and just stuff that's weird and kind of intriguing. Historical stuff, whatever I can find that kind of is interesting.
Do you find it changes from time to time? I don't know. Like a lot of times I mostly listen to books, but sometimes books just don't do it for me. I got to have music or.
Oh yeah. It completely drives your mood. Sometimes you got to have music. Sometimes the book is kind of boring or long, or you're kind of hitting the dull spot in it and you're kind of like, ugh. So you got to change it over to music or podcast or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I just finished Brandon Sanderson's last book, and it's like I've tried to listen to 4 other books. I've started literally 4 other books, and today was a music day apparently.
Well, I hit one of the Critical Failures books, which is not
those are awesome.
They're not an intellectual read or listen. They are very crude humor, but sometimes it hits a spot.
Yeah. Just for the record, last podcast we talked about Hayseed Dixie, and I'm going on the record for not liking that at all. If you want to listen to bluegrass remakes of cover songs, Iron Horse is way better.
And just in case Hasty Dixie's legal representation wants to reach him, it's Tom at
I'm not saying anything bad about him. I'm just saying, me personally, it didn't it didn't do it for me.
The views and thoughts of Tom Crine do not reflect the thoughts.
The views and thoughts of Mark of the Maker in general.
Just getting that out there for our legal team.
Legal team.
Which is also Mark. So far, we're getting
I'm not going to have to throw in $5 more on that.
we're getting sued by the Mac Tool Company and Hasty Dixie.
Right.
Mac can bring it. Fuck them.
Yeah. I think the Mark of the Maker legal team consult is a text message to Ron.
Pretty much.
About as close as we get.
That's awesome.
I have a feeling his answer would just be sue back.
So not everyone knows, but I've been invited up to Michael's house several times now to go fishing, and as soon as it warms up, hopefully I'll get another invite. We usually go with Jody. Well, we've always gone with Jody. It's they've gone a lot in the past, and they've started inviting me a few times, and it's a lot of fun. We enjoy fishing. What would you say is your favorite fish to fish for?
Smallies, man. If we're talking about hitting that creek/river, it's those smallies. Now, as far as fishing overall, the Canadian trip that I did when I was younger was phenomenal. That's hard to beat when you're playing who can catch the most pike, catch and release in 20 minutes kind of games. That's pretty fun.
I would love to do that. We should do a knife making trip to Canada, knife makers trip, like a knife makers invitational fishing trip.
Oh yeah, we've actually talked about that before. We could also do a podcast up there. That way we can write it off.
Dude, I like how you're thinking here.
Oh yeah.
Of course, there's not going to be any internet, but
yeah,
I didn't say anyone had to listen to it. It can be the Lost podcast.
The Lost podcast, yeah.
I like it.
We just record it local live.
Yeah. We'll put it on a cassette tape and bury it.
There you go, time capsule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are good days, good ways to recharge.
Yeah, they are. I love the fact that you're always moving. Fish a lot as a kid, but usually on lakes and stuff. My favorite was when we'd go up we have one called the Sac River where we'd catch walleye and stuff. But I just like the fact that you're always moving. And the fact that it was a lot of bluffs and caves, I'd make my dad stop so I can go explore them.
Yeah, we still do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did.
We did. Yeah, I love floating on a river. It's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
Or walking a creek with an ultralight rod and reel.
Yeah, it's kind of like you don't know what's around the next bend, and that's the excitement of it. I think it hits back to the sort of the exploring part, from kids and stuff like that. Just always something fun around the next corner.
Sean, do you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah. Man, what's your favorite and least favorite processes in the shop?
The favorite, man, that's got to be the actual, I guess, design and creating the rough kind of folder, I guess, or the rough blank. I love designing stuff because you can sit there and draw up, stuff all the time and just have fun with it. But man, when you just get like sort of the liners, or if you're doing a frame lock and the blade and the stop pin and everything kind of in, and you see that it works, that's exciting. Where you can be like, oh shit, that stuff I've been working on, it actually works as a knife and is going to be cool, and you think it's going to look good and all that stuff. The part that kills me the most is the details. They will kick my ass all over the place.
And I think that's what makes you such a good knife maker, honestly.
I appreciate that, but man, I can spend some time.
The attention to detail. I mean, if it doesn't bother you, you just let it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's like, I think the thing I hate most is like flattening, trying to get everything flat. because I can flatten and flatten and flatten and flatten, lay some bolsters on, hold it up to some sunlight. Like, how the hell did that gap get there? Flatten some more, go again. It's just like it always going for more. And then the way I contour it, kind of, it's tough on the bolsters.
Did the lapping machine help with that?
It does sometimes. I'll do the first initial work on those, but after that, it's got to be done by hand. It's too rough. Now, if it was like if I didn't use it with an abrasive pad on it, it might work for the final stuff, I'd say. But you also have to worry about it being, parallel and square and everything, because it doesn't matter. It may be flat, but it doesn't mean it's not, more weight on one side than the other.
Right.
So it's all kind of a balance there.
Interesting.
But yeah, I'm not I'm not a natural grinder. There's a lot of aspects that I wrestle with. Just always kind of changing stuff and trying to make it better. So there's parts, like Sean talking about the grinding and stuff. I'm just not natural at it. So sometimes they fight me all the way to the end. Sometimes I win, sometimes I don't. I just try to hope that most of the times I win.
Yeah. No, I think we all have cursed knives or something like that. Knives that are just fight you, don't want to be finished.
Sometimes you have cursed processes or parts that seem to always just give you shit.
Oh yeah.
And it's part of it, when we're making mechanisms as far as the folding knives, and anything that, it may be a fairly simple mechanism, but anything that has moving parts will fuck with you. And that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like sometimes it feels like conversations with Michael are like relationship counseling on some of these knives.
Yeah.
Right? It's like,
basically, yeah.
She just doesn't love me, man.
Yeah.
No,
this
come on.
Pissing me off.
So earlier when you were talking about your shop, the first one you had in your garage.
Uh-huh.
So for some reason, when I see that in my mind, I've seen a picture somewhere, but I see like an old 70s Bronco sitting outside.
Uh-huh.
And I think you sold that car, right?
I did.
Which really made me sad, because that's like one of my dream cars to have. A 73 or 72 Bronco totally redone would be.
Yeah.
It'd be a pretty amazing ride.
It was mine too. I bought it for like $3,000. It sat there for a year. I didn't do anything with it.
Probably made Abby mad the whole time.
Uh-huh. I didn't do anything with it. Like I said, it was a residential kind of neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it, I had no idea that the Bronco prices were going to go absolutely through the roof, or I wouldn't have sold it. So I think I sold it for $3,000. I probably.
Yeah.
So yeah,
those are so cool when they're redone.
Oh, they're gorgeous, but man, they've gotten crazy with the pricing.
Now, you've got another project car somewhere, right?
Oh, is that what you're going for? You're.
That's where I'm going.
I'm glad Tom's bringing it up, because I'm contractually disallowed from talking about that kind of vehicle.
It is.
Oh.
No, I bought it when I was 13 years old. I bought this car. I wanted a Mustang. I like I said, growing up, I worked. And I got paid for some of the stuff, and I saved up my money, and I spent $1,800 on a 68 Fastback. And my dad, like I said, he was a woodworking guy. He wasn't a metal guy, and that included cars and stuff like that. It wasn't, he would fix up the tractor and stuff like that best as possible. It wasn't exactly Mr. Mechanics by any stretch of the imagination. So did a lot of how to and local car, auto parts place to get it running and going. And it's still, I still got it at my parents' place, and it's time. It's time to get that thing going.
That'll be really neat.
It'll be awesome. It'll be really expensive. I don't think Abby's too excited about that, though.
Oh, yeah. See, you got to get your kids excited about it, and then it's all good.
Well, I don't know if she's ever ridden in something that like that. And I think it's one of those things. It's kind of like the watching, you know, or forging steel or something like that. It's just writing and something like that. It's a very visceral, primal kind of feeling. You know, it's a bit of power, I guess.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you...
Go ahead.
No, and I think, you know, a lot of people that have ridden in an old car or something that's just kind of like that. You feel it, you know, and it's hard to get it out of your bones. And like I said, it's been sitting there for a long time, and I still think about it, you know, and I still remember what it feels like to drive it. And it doesn't really go away. But unfortunately, they take a whole lot of money to get up to how you want them to go.
Yep. Funny aside, I sent a meme to some Ford friends today. It's got like an old geezer on it. It says, back in my day, all we had is Ford. And then underneath it says, so we just walked everywhere.
I see. Now he's laughing. Mark was real quiet during that conversation.
No, I was just listening to you describe what it's like to drive a sweet Chevy Camaro.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell you what, I'm not one of those guys. I know, you know, if you work for the company, yeah, I get it. But, you know, there's a lot of brand, you know, like my brand's the best and all that. But I just like all cars. If they're old classic cars or whatever, and it's cool, I don't care who made it. You know, I like them all. Chevy, Dodge, Ford, does not matter.
AMX.
I drive a Javelin in a second.
Right.
There's like,
come on,
there's
would.
like an amnesty year somewhere in there, I think, for some people. Like if it's before a certain year, it doesn't matter what it is.
Oh, that's where the brand loyalty goes away.
That's funny.
Mid 60s super stock Dodge, I'm down.
Oh yeah, I know you'd get behind a wedge in a second.
Absolutely.
65 GTO.
Yeah, all in.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sean, you got anything else you wanted to ask?
Love muscle cars.
Man, you're a gun guy. What guns are floating your boat right now?
Man, just like anything, I like all guns. I like it.
Good answer.
I don't really, you know, I've got wheel guns. I really suck at shooting them, but I like them because they're gorgeous. You know, they're, you know, especially the old Pythons and stuff like that. The bluing they put on those things, it's just absolutely gorgeous. I can't shoot them for shit, but I still pine after them and buy them when I can. You know, the same goes with, you know, ARs and stuff like that. I love the AR. It's just a fun gun to shoot. And I've got probably more than I need, and that's probably not something you should say, but I don't know. I just like them. They're good. I remember, you know, when I was in boot camp, that was the most relaxing time, was sitting behind and shooting the M16 was just relaxing. You know, it's part of, I like long guns and stuff. I like pistols. I like them all.
Didn't your dad just recently pass you something really cool?
Yeah. He passed me a Woodsman.
A Colt Woodsman?
No.
Mm-hmm. No, a high standard.
Oh.
22.
Super cool guns.
Oh,
yeah.
You're like, oh, not that.
Sorry, I've always wanted one, man.
No, the Colt Woodsman.
I do love the high standard.
I don't know if it's called the Woodsman or not. Is it the high standard?
I don't think high standard makes a Woodsman. It's a Colt.
That was the Colt. But it looks a lot like the Woodsman. The style is very similar.
It was my grandfather's pistol.
At a High Point?
No, not a High Point.
No,
it was an old one, old 22. That was my grandfather's, and then my dad had it, and that was about the only pistol we had around. We were always long gun type of shooters and stuff, and we just never really shot pistols. Now, I think one of the coolest pistols, though, or guns I have is it's a Smith & Wesson. I think it's a 27.3. Not really good on the numbers on those. And I think you're a big wheel gun guy, aren't you, Tom?
27 is an in-frame 357.
Okay. This was it was a gun. My parents knew the people that or the daughter of the guy that was the director of the FBI back in the 80s. And he was also a naval intelligence officer. He was a range master at Quantico. He taught shooting there, became the director, and then he moved on to become a policeman there in Kansas City, chief of police so he had a very storied kind of life. And then the gun that they gave him, or when he was in the naval intelligence, was in that, and there he had a gun, which was a Smith & Wesson that has stamped, what is it? Office of Naval Intelligence, or it's got a special stamp on it. But anyway, they passed it to my dad, and then he passed that one on to me. And that was his gun, which was just really damn cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
I love it when they have history, I mean, that's like museum stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. It just, I get it out and look at it, and it says ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence.
Oh, that's awesome.
What it has stamped on it.
That's cool.
Sorry, I've talked so much today. I'm losing track of names and numbers. And
well, this was. I'll be honest. I think this was probably. This was one of my favorites. As far as the interviews, I learned a lot about. I learned a lot about everyone on this one, and much less Burch.
Nice.
Yeah, I actually got a text from Abby asking if I was okay. She's like,
that's funny.
She knows it's past my bedtime.
Right. Well, cool. I think one thing that I think we can do that'll be really fun is when we talk about stuff on the show, if you guys can take a picture or find a picture of some stuff that we talked about and then drop it onto the Instagram or in the Facebook group to help people kind of connect the dots, I think that'd be a really cool deal and folks would enjoy it.
It is a high standard Duramatic with the box still with it, and the little high standard parts price list.
That's way cool.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah. Sean, what do you got going on in your shop right now?
And I've put folders aside for a moment. I've been trying to draw up a fixed blade to do some guarded work on, do guard work on and get a feel for that to progress to something I want to do later in the year. So that's what I've been messing with.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Man, it's a nice change of pace.
And it looks badass so far. The drawing was.
Is it a big knife?
It will be, yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking probably at least like a 9-inch blade or so.
Wow.
So a Bowie. Cool. Or some kind of Bowie-sized knife.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'll probably end up doing kind of an upsweep Persian-y kind of blade shape. Something a little dramatic.
Ooh. Yeah, I like
something
that.
I'll put off grinding for a few months.
You'll get it all blanked out and all that stuff and be like, shit, I gotta grind this now.
Just knock it out, you got it.
Yeah. Man, I never minded grinding the big blades that much. I always just ground them in sections, and they went pretty smooth for the most part. Knock on wood.
I like that. Safe to assume you're working for knives for TKI?
Oh, me?
Michael? Yeah, you're working on TKI stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fervently. Yes. Hard, fast, long. It's, I've been working a lot. Got that.
You getting close on any of them?
I hope so.
Very non-committal. I like
that. When it is, right?
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a surprise ending. We don't know.
That's awesome.
Not really.
This is not supposed to be suspenseful.
No, this isn't one of my podcasts.
Dude, it is. Once again, though, that's how it is for shows. It's like, at least for me, I always start with like, I'm going to do 10 or 15, and then, oh crap, it's getting short, so I'm going to work on these 5. And then when it comes time for going to the show, it's like, I finished these 2. So
Right.
You start
Good
start the
time.
triage like a son of a bitch.
these 5 are not working. And so we're just going to set them over there. Or
All right.
whatever.
You two
know?
are my favorites now.
Right. So, Tom, you were just talking, I think, before we started rolling the show, you've been working on a whole bunch of stuff, right? Trying to get your TKI knives finished up?
Yeah, I'm not actually going to the show, but I'm making knives for the show for Steve Delac to go in the package gift set that you can buy. And so I've got 100 knives that I've been working on like crazy. I pretty much dropped off of Facebook and social media for the last week or 2. Very limited access, but I've just been making knives and questioning my sanity for agreeing to make 100 of the same thing. But just finished up the handles, so I'll be starting to do sheath work tonight, and hopefully we'll finish up and ship everything Monday.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to work on something else.
Right.
And then next week's a short week. We're going to go to a basketball tournament down in Texas for my son Ben, and we're having to drop a new power system, new power source for the or bigger power source for the CNC. So the electrician's going to do that next Thursday, and they're going to shut all the electricity off for the shop. So that's going to work out pretty good that I'm out of town.
When that thing shows up, you ought to just play AC/DC's TNT really loud and just put in CNC. Just say that to yourself. Yell it.
I like it. Mark, what have you been up to?
I did some zirconium beads last weekend. That seemed to go over pretty well. They went pretty insanely fast. So I did a bunch of crazy stuff with, you can electrochem, anodize Zirc, and torch it. And I did some kind of combination of the two and got a bunch of nutty looking colors for zirconium. So for just straight Zirc, not being Zirctite or something else, they came out pretty wild looking. So that's been fun.
Yeah. Zirc's fun stuff.
All the reactive metals are in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As long as I don't burn the house down, I'll be happy.
That's it.
I think you're good.
Yeah.
Zirc's funny. It burns hot, but if you're not grinding tie on top of it, it doesn't usually start on fire.
Zirc used to be like the scariest thing I ever did. And then we started getting into the Zirctite. And now I don't know what's going to...
Yeah, that stuff sucks.
Something will come next that'll make Zirctite seem like it's tame.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeehaw! All right. Are we doing the what are we fiddling with thing? Because I can hear Burch or somebody clanking something on the table or something else.
Somebody was pounding something.
That might have been me.
Wasn't
Sorry. I was trying to be quiet. I've just got a 1-inch diameter copper ball I've been fiddling with, and a buck. I think it's a 102, the fixed blade. Buck Knives is doing a bunch of their knives in 5160, and I've recently bought a few of them to play with.
That's cool.
Because
that's cool.
I wanted these knives when I was a little kid, and I couldn't afford them. Seriously contemplated stealing my cousin's, and I didn't. I contemplated it. And now, I have a little discretionary fund, and I can write it off, so I picked up a couple.
Knife research.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time on eBay looking at stuff that is going to cost me some money. All because of this podcast got me all reinvigorated on all these old school, production knives that I wasn't able to buy when I was young.
Exactly. And how cool is it that they're using 5160?
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I think it's cool.
That is a great steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Paul Boss heat treat. It's actually 5160H, I think, which is a spring, the tougher version. But
nice.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is, all three of us, we love knives, so we're constantly playing with new stuff and looking at new stuff. But yeah.
Are they doing the 110 in it?
So I haven't seen the 110 yet. You can get the 110 in S30V, but so far I've only seen most of the fixed blades. So I picked up one of the Skinners, and I got the smaller 102, like the personal sized one. But
pretty awesome.
Yeah. Buck website is pretty cool. They've been making the same stuff forever, just about the good stuff, the 110 and the Ranger and stuff. But they've got a website that you can actually go on and build your own custom version with different handles and blades and finishes, and kind of cool.
That is cool.
I'll have to check that out. It's been a long time since I've been on a Buck website.
Well, now they had a custom shop back in the day.
That they still do custom runs, but I don't think you can. There's no mention of the custom shop on their site. But yeah, they used to make a lot of cool stuff,
like
in
true
custom.
Custom. You sent them specs, and they adjusted to what they could do, and all of that stuff.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's in one of the Guns Digest knife books I have. They do a little tour of it, which, I mean, that was probably in 77 or 80 or something like that, you know.
Did they show a video of their factory? They got a big facility up in Idaho. They're making a lot of knives in the USA, which,
Good.
I mean, props to them. You know, they've kind of dropped the slip joints that kind of, you know, back in the day, all the old guys and my dad carried. And I hate to see that, but, you know, they're continuing on doing what they have to do to be solvent and make a profit. So
My dad,
got to give him props.
he killed a deer with a buck slip joint. True story.
That's awesome.
That's the worst story I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's like,
Oh yeah, he killed a deer with a bent paper clip. Next topic.
pregnant pause. And
Yeah,
nothing.
explain
I don't know
that.
it was messed up or something. I don't know. It probably got hit or something by a car. It was just all messed up, and he went out there like a dad, slit his throat with his little pocket knife.
You got it done.
Mm-hmm.
Check that out.
Oh yeah.
Sean, what are you carrying today?
Man, I was in a hurry. I've just got my Commander on me. I didn't grab anything to play with.
Did you say you were in a hurry and you just went commando?
Not this time, but I was in a hurry and I just have my Commander on me.
Oh, sorry.
No
My
sweat.
bad.
He does it so often he doesn't even call it commando.
No, I just call it putting on my pants.
Did you say it was Did you say it was a 99, Sean? When we talked about it before?
90,
Or what?
let's see, 98. One of the true satin ones.
Yeah, nice. Very cool. I grabbed one of Gus Cicchini's knives this morning. This is one of his early,
Fancy.
one of the early versions of his SLT little hidden tab, spring-loaded tab flipper.
Those are badass.
Yeah.
Dude, Gus is hardcore. He is skilled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's awesome. I don't remember if it was at Blade Show or someplace else. He was telling me about this, and he showed me a picture of it. I think he had it on his phone, and he said, "What do you think about this mechanism?" And I said, "I think that's insane and cool, and you should make me one."
Yeah.
And so, I think this is a fairly early one, but he put a little piece of inlay in there for some stuff that I wanted, and boy, is it cool.
The Westinghouse inlays.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a cool piece.
Wow.
Yeah. So, very nice knife. What about you, Michael?
A 9mm bullet.
Hmm.
It was just sitting here, and I've just been fiddling with it.
On the, I'm making air quotes, shipping table?
Yeah, on the shipping table.
The shipping
Which is
table where all the
also-
guns are?
Yeah, it's filled with guns. There's a couple Blade magazines, one with Kevin Sorbo on it, with his, I guess when his Hercules type show was on.
Holy crap, I remember that issue. That's an old one.
Yeah. Yep, it's just sitting here. So yeah, I don't do a lot of shipping, but I sure as shit keep this table full.
Yeah.
Multi-purpose.
It's a podcast table.
The podcast table. That's probably a better name, actually. It was the RC car table for a while, the radio control car table.
I've got some RC little handle whatever controllers on here too. Some random shotgun shells for no reason.
Right.
That's what shipping tables are for. That's what everyone looks like, right?
That's what they're designed for. It's in the name.
Exactly.
It's in the name. All right. So I think this is a very interesting conversation. I hope folks like it. And we continue to get very nice feedback from people. Someone asked the other day about, are we on iHeartRadio? And no, we're not there yet because they won't let us publish there until we have been in existence for 2 months. So we'll be available on iHeartRadio sometime shortly after February 20th, which would be our 2-month, anniversary date.
Anniversary.
Right.
Happy 2-month anniversary, fellas.
We're going to a special dinner, maybe to the movies to celebrate.
And then back to my place.
This seems sketchy.
No,
you goddamn right it does.
I was just going to suggest gifting some old school production knives and stuff, but hey, you know.
Right. So anyway, we appreciate everybody's feedback. Thanks for leaving reviews. We have pretty decent. Last I looked, it was over 50 reviews on iTunes, so that's awesome.
That is awesome.
So we appreciate people taking the time to do that. If you haven't, we'd love for you to do it. But I know not everybody uses that format to listen to the show. So we just thank everybody for listening and paying attention and being interested.
Yeah. Much appreciation.
Well, thank you all very much for letting us do this.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So Tom, you were talking about doing some kind of contest. When do you think you want to do that?
Let's do it this next week.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how we're going to give it away. And I mean, this prize it's like $1,000 prize now. Apparently I ruined a really good thing, but
talking about the book.
Yeah. I think the cheapest one I've seen is about $150 now, but
nice.
Those aren't autographed, so
yeah.
Let's give it away this next week. Let's talk about it on the Facebook page and figure it out.
Okay. So we'll come up with a plan, watch the Facebook group, the Mark of the Maker Facebook group, for info on how to enter the contest for a copy of Knives and Knife Makers signed by at least Tom, maybe some other people too. If we can figure it out.
Might send it around to everyone.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be.
Yeah.
All right. And I don't know if we know what our next episode is.
Yeah, it's you.
But we got to figure that out.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's Mark.
Well, we'll see.
It's called the Mark.
We'll see.
Mark of the Maker.
And
That's the episode no one wants to listen to.
yeah,
Oh,
give
come
yourself
on.
some credit, man.
We have so many questions.
many.
Yeah, I can
If
only
we
imagine.
We had to
Personal
do it.
questions.
You got to do it.
We'll see.
It is a bit nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right. Well, we'll find out what episode 5 is, and people will find out here in a little while what the next episode's going to be about. But we've been doing these about every 2 weeks-ish. And so hopefully we can stay on some kind of pace, at least for a little while. We want to, we have a whole huge list of ideas and guests planned and a bunch of other stuff. So, lots to come. And I think if people have liked what we've been talking about so far, then I think they'll really like what we're going to do moving forward. So
We haven't even gotten into the content
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. This is just introductory material.
I know.
That's the exciting part.
yep.
It's like the world's longest intro.
Yeah, exactly.
Birch has a lot of words.
Apparently.
And
He's got the most of all.
I use them all.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine on the web at crineknives.net, in his Facebook group, Crine Knives, or in his Instagram account at Crine Knives. For Michael Burch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram at birchtreeblades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram at msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, You can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram at Mark of the Maker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.